Are you planning to run Berlin Half Marathon in the following years? This video will help you answer a lot of your questions. Hi, I'm Lenka and I ran the Berlin Half Marathon 2025. I had the time of my life, but I have to admit that I was pretty nervous about doing my first international race. And I'm a pretty well-traveled person. So that's why I created this video that contains all the practical information that I wish I had before I ran the Berlin Half Marathon. We are going to cover these topics: the insider information about the race itself, transportation in Berlin, accommodation, how much it all costs, and if there is a language barrier that you can expect. At the end of the video, I will answer your questions about how I prepared for the Berlin Half and how I was able to run a massive PB and what is next for me. Feel free to save this video and rewatch it whenever you need to help your preparation. And now let's get straight to it. All of these big races get sold out pretty quickly and Berlin is no exception. So what I learned is that you need to plan when to apply. And since 2026, the lottery entry system got introduced to manage the volume of applications. So it has gotten a little bit harder to get in, but that's why it pays to be prepared. So I would really recommend that you follow the Berlin Half Marathon social media sites, especially the Instagram. And if you are running the Super Halves series, to follow them as well. Another thing that I did and I would really recommend is to subscribe to their newsletter. The Berlin newsletter you can find in the footer of the website, and the Super Halves newsletter you get automatically when you create an account. I especially love the Super Halves overview of all the race dates and application dates, because then you don't have to do all the research yourself and they have done it for you. My second tip would be to read all the FAQ on Berlin Half Marathon website, because that answered a lot of my questions. And a few weeks before the race, they publish a magazine where they also give you a lot of practical tips for the day. Now let's talk about getting to the race on the race day. So on the website, they recommend that you arrive to the start area 30 minutes before your start time. Now, what does it mean? So Berlin Half Marathon divides you into multiple groups based on your finishing time. So, for example, I was in the group F, which was second to last, and that is because my estimated time was around 2:15. And a few days before the race itself, you will learn which group you belong to and what will be your race start time. Again, you can find that on the website itself. I guess they're recommending this 30 minutes because they actually want people arriving at different times so that everybody doesn't arrive at the same time, and the area, even though it's massive, doesn't get crowded with people. Newsflash, it was still very crowded because my group was huge. I gave myself an hour because it took me about 30 minutes to get from my hotel to the start area, and then I had 30 minutes at the start area to get dressed and find the truck where I'm supposed to drop off my bag, and that alone took me 15 minutes to find because I had to go through all the area to find the truck based on my bib number. And it was at the very back. I mean, what are the chances? As per usual, the Portaloo lines were really long. But there were areas where the Portaloos were completely empty. Everybody was queuing at the same locations. So don't join the first queue for a Portaloo that you see, and go explore the start area. And chances are you will also discover some places where it's completely empty and nobody's there. Getting into the starting corridor also took a little longer than I expected. I would recommend leaving at least 5 to 10 minutes to get to the starting corridor, because each group has different entry point. I was in the F group, and I would say that it took me at least 7-ish minutes to get into the starting corridor from the truck that I dropped off my bag. This might be different for all of the groups, so if you have different experience, please share it in the comments for others. In general, I would recommend that you arrive to the Berlin Half Marathon already dressed. I didn't do that. I regret that a little bit. But I would say that if you are dressed, 30 minutes in the starting area is plenty. But if you plan to get dressed, I would arrive 45 minutes before your starting time. And then I had a question about the 8 stations from one of the viewers. So there were 8 stations at kilometers 5, 10. Then there was an 8 station handing out Martin gels, but they had no drinks, and that was at kilometer 12. And then there are another stations at kilometer 14, 17, and 19 and a half. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see what was available where. This might change next year, but at least so that you know a little bit what to expect. By the way, I would recommend taking your own gels because there was a rule to take 1 gel per person, and my guess is that most people take more than just 1 gel when they are running a half marathon. So just take that into consideration. Personally, I left my hydration vest at home, and I'm really glad I did that because it wasn't necessary. They allow hydration vests and belts, but only up to 3 liters, so it's only the small ones. The 8 stations felt really plentiful, and I carried my little 250 milliliter flask, and I was able to fill that in at every 8 station. One thing to note, and it might surprise some people, is that at Berlin Half they are using these like hard cups, so you are not able to pinch it and drink from it while you are running, and that might throw off some people, so it might be good to practice that in your training. Personally, I didn't mind stopping at the 8 stations, but it did cost me a little bit of time. Now let's talk about the transportation system, and let me just say that Berlin has excellent public transport. You really don't need a car, and the organizers are encouraging everyone to arrive by public transport and leave their cars at home, and you can even use your bib number to travel for free on the day of the race. The entrance and exit to the start and finish area is near the Reichstag building, which is here on the map of Berlin. Bundestag and Brandenburger Tor, I'm sorry for mispronouncing it, are the nearest stations, and you can use Google Maps or the BVG or BVG website to see which lines you need to take from wherever you are staying. And I also recommend downloading the BVG tickets application so that you can purchase your tickets via the app, via like Apple Pay or Google Pay, and you don't need to deal with cash and the ticket machines. Which brings us to the topic of accommodation. So be prepared that all of the hotel prices go up for when the Berlin Half Marathon happens. Expect to pay between 90 and even 200 euros per night. The closer the hotel is located to the start and finish line, the more expensive it is, understandably. If you want to have breakfast included, always double check that in the rate that you are getting, it is included a breakfast, because it's not automatically done this way. And you might think that, oh, you found like a really cheap hotel that might be a good deal, and then you learn that you have to purchase breakfast extra, and you are getting on the same rate that some of the hotels which are closer to the start line. Another thing that you should budget for is the tourist tax or city tax that gets automatically added to your hotel bill. And in 2025, I got charged 11 euros per night. My hotel also added some kind of refundable fee when I checked in, and they have released that when I checked out. If I remember correctly, it was like 90 euros. I don't understand exactly what was it for. Maybe if I make like extra purchases at the store that they had. I don't know. I'm not really experienced in staying at hotels, but it was something that surprised me. And if you're also not used to staying at hotels, this might also surprise you. So just have a little bit extra on your credit card ready for any like extra charges. I would also recommend that you book your accommodation at least a few months ahead of the race because the hotel rooms get filled up really quickly. One thing to consider is that for Berlin, because it's so popular, there are a lot of these like sports agencies that are booking hotels en masse for their clients. So especially when it comes to single bed rooms, these get booked out really quickly. And then when you will be looking for rooms, you will just see all of these like double rooms, and those cost a lot more. I started researching hotels about like 6 months ahead, and I booked my hotel about 3 months before the race. If you want to make sure that you are staying close to the start and finish line of the race, you can make use of the hotels which are officially associated with the Berlin Half Marathon. That's what I ended up doing because the rates were slightly better than what I was able to find on my own. At the time of making this video, this form has been removed. I guess they remove it always after the race, and then they publish it again once they are finished making deals with the hotels for the following year. So keep your eyes on the FAQ or preparation sections of the website. I stayed at the Marriott Courtyard, which was about 2 kilometers from the finishing line, so about 25 to 30 minutes of a slow walk. Overall, if you choose a hotel in any of the areas of where I screenshotted the map, you will be fine and conveniently close to the race. Let's talk money. I have to be honest, I have contemplated whether to include this or not because money can be a touchy subject for some people, and some people have lots of different opinions on it. However, I feel like there's a level of transparency missing in the running community when it comes to honestly sharing how much attending these races actually costs. And let me tell you, it is not cheap at all. And I certainly would have appreciated to know at least some kind of frame of what I should expect to pay, especially because this was my first international race and I just didn't know what to expect, honestly. Now, of course, you can significantly cut the cost of these races when you decide to rough it. So, for example, you can do couch surfing, you can book a hostel and sleep with another 10 or 12 people in the room if you don't mind that. You can arrive for just one night and leave immediately after the race. You can bring your own food from your home and or kind of like get something cheap from the supermarket. Yes, you can do all of that, of course. I chose to turn this trip into a little vacation and I saved up for it for an entire year. I treated myself to a nice hotel in a safe location because as a woman, I care about that. I came for 4 days and overall I enjoyed myself. And I'm happy with that decision, so please respect that. So here you can see the breakdown of the costs per category, and I did a really rough conversions into different currencies. I paid in euros, of course, because in Germany you use euros, but I included dollars and Czech crowns because I have viewers from different countries. Overall, I spent about 788 euros, which is roughly 889 US dollars and just over like 20,000 Czech crowns. What I didn't include is any gear, even though I bought shoes and leggings specifically for this race, because I will be using it outside of this race as well. Another thing that I didn't include is sports nutrition, like gels and recovery drinks, because again, I use that regardless. I also didn't include the cost of training, like the Runner app, sports massages and stuff like that. You might also wonder how come the travel expense is so low, and it's because Berlin is just close to 400 kilometers away from Prague, and the bus tickets are pretty affordable. If I had to fly in, this expense would have been much higher. If you are watching this and you ran the Berlin Half Marathon and are comfortable sharing how much it cost you together with information where you're from, please feel free to share it in the comments, because maybe someone from your country might read that and it might help them prepare financially for this race. Thank you so much. Now let's talk about the language barrier. And from my experience, you don't need to be worried about that at all when it comes to Berlin, because from my experience, Germans have really high level of English. When I travel, I like to learn at least a few basic phrases of the country or of the language in the country spoken, because I find that it's more polite than like immediately switching into English and just kind of assuming that everyone knows English. I think that's quite rude, actually. Whether it was at the expo or at the race itself or in the hotel or in shops, cafe places, everywhere, I was able to communicate in English. Now, of course, I tried speaking in German, but they kind of immediately switched into English on their own because they wanted to save me or spare me my misery. So it was really easy to communicate everywhere. And that's all the info that I wish I had before I ran Berlin Half Marathon. And if you have any follow-up questions, just feel free to drop them in the comments and I will answer whatever I know. And now I will answer some of your questions about training for Berlin Half and what's next for me. To prepare for Berlin Half Marathon, I did a 12-week training plan with 3 runs per week. One was a long run, one was an easy run, and one was a speed run, either intervals or tempo run. My priority for this training block was to increase my speed, so I took my speed sessions very seriously, and I even hit the treadmill when the weather was too icy to go running outside. And I don't normally do that. I don't like the treadmill. On top of that, I did 2 30-minute runner-focused strength sessions and 2 mobility sessions. One was a runner-focused yoga and other one was runner-focused Pilates. And of course, I tried stretching and rolling and doing my physio exercises almost every day, but of course not every day. Let's be honest. So that comes down to training 6 times per week and having 1 day off to just rest and chill. Overall, I ran 325 kilometers, although I was supposed to run 374 kilometers. Sadly, about halfway through, I got a nasty ear infection and it took me out for a while. So I didn't have a perfect training block. But other than that, I had no injuries. I had like teeny tiny niggles in the high volume weeks and of course in the taper week when you have the paranoia. But other than that, it was great. Now, before this training plan, I did another 12-week training plan for a half marathon. I ran about also like 320 kilometers. It was supposed to be much more, but I got sick like twice, so yeah, that's that. I had again like 3 runs per week. I had only 1 strength session, which was longer, 45-minute one instead of 30-minute one. And I had 2 mobility sessions, again, yoga and Pilates. And I'm really glad I did this like base building plan before the actual half marathon preparation, because after the Prague half marathon, I only focused on races in the like mid distance. So for example, I ran 12.5 kilometers in the Wings for Life, then I ran an 11-kilometer trail race, and then I ran a 12-kilometer half trail and half road race. So I just focused on this distance, and I feel like if I did like 1 12-week preparation where I focused on both volume and speed, then I maybe would have overtrained myself and gotten some injuries. So I'm glad that I did 1 training plan focused on volume and not on speed, and then another one where I just focused on getting the speed in the legs. Now, if this is the correct way to train, I have no idea. I'm not a running coach, so all of this is not running advice. Also considering that this is my 3rd year of running, and before that I was sick for 2.5 years. So my fitness level is kind of low and not quite there. So that's why I have this like careful, slow and steady approach. And finally, what is next for me? I have just begun an 18-week training plan to run my first trail half marathon, for which I hope to get my first UTMB points. And that is like one baby step towards hopefully one day being able to run and a UTMB race. Not the UTMB race, but a UTMB race. I talk more about this in this video if you are interested. This race is almost 23 kilometers and close to 400 meters of elevation gain. Ouch. And last year I did the 11K version, which I mentioned earlier. And one day I would like to run the 50K ultra version of this race. In my first week of training, I have my first B race. I'm running the Wings for Life charity run, and I hope to run 14 kilometers, but let's see what I'm capable of on race day. A few weeks into the training, I'm going to be running my second B race, which is called Ještědský race. And I'm running the 10-kilometer version, which has 650 meters of elevation gain. And that is gonna hurt a lot. Ouch. Why? Why am I doing this to myself? And last race that I have planned for 2025 so far is the nature run. Again, I will do the short version of 12 kilometers. It will be my third time running this, and I just treat this race as a celebration of how far I have come, because in 2023, this was the very first running race that I've ever done, and that's why it holds a special place in my heart. Okay, so that's what's next for me after the Berlin Half Marathon. I'm so excited to make the change from road running to trail running, and from focusing on speed to focusing on distance and elevation gain. I like to switch between the two because I feel like it's helping me become a more well-rounded runner, and the change kind of prevents me from burning out. If you have any follow-up questions about the Berlin Half or anything else, just drop them in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao!